DK,
Matt,
hi.
what's going on?
Nice to chat with you in person. We've spoken on the phone before, but I don't know if we've ever done this live.
I know, I was thinking that too. I think we chatted on the phone actually it was several years ago, probably.
At
Were,
least
and
two, probably three.
were you on the east coast of Canada before?
Yes, I was in
And now,
Montreal. I was in New York, and then Montreal, and then Vancouver.
okay, so now you're on the west coast.
Yeah, I'm in Vancouver now.
And what brought you? Do you have family or friends over there? Or?
Oh, I guess you don't know the story of my life very well, but yeah, it's a bit of a crazy tale. The very fast version is my wife and I were in New York City, and we had two boys, and I was launching City Block, and that
Hmm.
was extremely trying for all the reasons you might imagine, because our second son was born in the midst of that launch, and so it was tough times. And when I got to the company to a certain point, I said, okay, I'm pulling the ripcord. I'm going to take a career break. And so we moved the family back to Canada. I was going to be a stay-at-home dad indefinitely. We bought a house in Montreal. That's where we wanted
Hmm.
to be. My sister lives in Ottawa. We're very close. And so that was the plan. And then, like 3 months later, we found out my wife was pregnant with twins.
Mm.
And, and we were like, oh my God. And it was a huge, that news is always like a huge surprise, but it was particularly a big surprise for us because, um, she hadn't previously been able to become pregnant naturally. Like we had
Mm.
just assumed that, like we had used like interventions to help us
Right.
conceive.
Yeah.
And so we weren't really thinking about that. And so like the pregnancy was a huge shock. Twins was a double shock. And we were like, oh my
So it
God,
wasn't from the interventions. It was a non-intervention related.
unplanned. Un-
Oh well. Okay.
yeah, it was an unplanned pregnancy and twins. And we were just like, wow. And
Wow.
And so yeah, suddenly we were going from two kids to four kids, and like we hadn't had the plan necessarily to have more kids
Right.
than two. And Fiona grew up here in Vancouver, and her parents were here, and so we made the decision that we were going to need help to bring
Oh
up
yeah.
this these four kids.
Yeah.
And so in the end, we were only in Montreal for 5 months, and we just uprooted ourselves again and moved the whole family to
Wow.
Vancouver like very quickly because she was pregnant, and we wanted to get that done before she gave birth and stuff. And
Yeah,
so
so you get like new doctors and get everything
exactly.
settled in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we just kind of like touched down in Montreal and then
Oh
moved to
wow.
Vancouver. Yeah, so it was last year was a very intense year for that, and then COVID happened as well, and so
So
uh,
that move was in the middle of COVID.
our move happened just before COVID. The girls were born on Valentine's Day last year, so at the very outset of
Oh
COVID.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, um,
Nice. So
yeah.
you guys have been pretty locked down.
Vancouver's been reasonable. Vancouver
Uh-huh.
was one of the first places in Canada to get hit. It has big Chinese and Iranian communities, and so early on
Probably
we had.
some overlap from Seattle too, right? Because Seattle was also one of the worst.
Yes, yes, exactly. Though the American border was closed pretty quickly, um, you know, and but I've been pretty impressed with the government response here in BC.
Mm.
They've communicated extremely well. They've made reasonable decisions. There's never been a hard lockdown here. Certainly much better than Ontario and Quebec,
Hmm.
where the lockdowns were like more severe. Some businesses were closed. Our boys have been able to stay in daycare the whole time, which has been tremendous.
Yeah.
And frankly, like life hasn't been wildly different than it would have been otherwise. With two newborns in the world, you
Yeah.
psychologically prepare to kind of go on a pretty insular first year.
Your own
Anyway.
lockdown, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, we've made it. We've made it through okay.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's fun.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, I think since I'm trying to think of last time we caught up when it was on the phone. I'm trying to remember all of what I think there was some Canada context that we might have been talking about.
You were
Is that right?
thinking about remote work and where to set up operations.
Yes.
We
Okay.
talked a little bit about Toronto, Montreal, even maybe
Sounds right.
Vancouver came up at that time.
Yes, that's right. And I think you'd mentioned to me about a friend of yours who went to some like mining town way in the north, one of the north end of one of the provinces, and you
Well,
were
that's
sort
where
of
I'm
like,
from. I'm from a mining town, and
oh yeah,
I have this guy who's now going to be my stepbrother because my dad's marrying his mom.
oh
But
wow,
yeah, he's like super PhD and like, you know, coding genius now. And
Yeah.
he moved back home to be close to his mom and has 5 brothers and sisters. And you know,
Yeah.
he's the perfect candidate for this new remote first world, you know, because what
Yeah.
else is happening in Sudbury, Ontario? Nothing. But he can go and command the, you know, most, you know, exclusive tech gigs that
Yeah.
he wants, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we've been, I think we've been in that mode, you know, building the team around Highlighter for, I mean, we've been fully remote from day one, which was basically like 3 years ago.
Mhm.
And we just keep doing it that way. And it's just like more fun. And there's so many great people out there. And it's, you know, effectively, you know, as far as these things go compared to like in office, it feels very like low hassle in many
Mhm.
ways. Whereas offices have like the coordination of like, get the place and find the people who are all co-located, whereas you can meet anybody in the world.
Yeah.
You know, totally work. So it feels like low hassle relative to, you know, everybody's got to be within like this, you know, 7-block radius of Soma in San Francisco.
Right. Well, you know, I've always thought, you know, tech workers are kind of built this way. You know, like this has been a kind of a slow dawning in tech for a long time, and you know, I think we're built to communicate like really quickly, and maybe to even form relationships very quickly, and you know, it's part of tech culture. I've been particularly interested to see how this remote first world culturally is going to impact non-tech people. You know, that where remote work is foisted upon them, and it you know, the cultural norms just don't exist for remote work. And my wife is about to step into this because she just got a job with the city of Vancouver. You know, we live in Vancouver. She's an urban planner. She's just got this job with the city. But the city of Vancouver itself now has a work from home policy. And so, you know, like notionally, you know, like the office is quote unquote down the street, but everyone's remote. And so she's going to onboard into a new job, not knowing anyone, and have to do all of this remotely, the relationship building. And I think for tech workers, you know, it's probably like a friction or a higher tax to pay than doing that initial bonding in person. Yeah. But I wonder, I'm going to be very interested to observe how she does it and how the organization, you know, synchronizes to her and her to it.
Are they primarily knowledge work, like stuff that mostly could be done over, I don't know, Word docs, email, Excel?
Yes, like, and email. Yeah. By and large, you know, there's going to be some necessarily like physical site visits, you know, where she's going to go off into the real world and bump into people. So that will create opportunity for, you know, some relationship building and stuff. But yeah, it's largely knowledge work.
Right. Yeah. It's just like, I think it seems like natural that the tech world would be the first to go remote because it's kind of flexible to try out new things and any edges people are willing to explore. But then the, you know, kind of let's call it like non-tech knowledge work seems like one of the next things that this should happen to, because it's like all the right ingredients to make it work, but just maybe a little bit less culturally just like trying to find the next thing, more trying to just like get something done versus find the next thing.
Right.
That's funny, you know, adaptation. Yeah. And then have you been pretty focused on the Hello Bitcoin stuff since, I guess, that whole time?
Yes, you know, like it's my main kind of like intellectual or, you know, like work, but it's not really work pursuit. When we moved to Vancouver last year, it was really the impetus to start the project. I love telling people about Bitcoin. I was trying to find like, you know, new ways to do that. I wanted to give a talk at my local library, so I put together a deck, you know, about Bitcoin, and that deck and open sourcing the deck was the start of the project. I wanted to give that deck to the world and say like, hey, other Bitcoiners, you want to go and tell the Bitcoin story? Here, like I've done the work and put together the deck. You can use it. So that's what I did then. And then my twins came into the world, and COVID. It was a very intense summer and start of fall, but then in the fall, life started to return slightly back to normal for me, and I have some hours freeing up, you know, to work and contribute. And Steve helped, you know, kick me in the ass a little bit to be like, you know, hey, we need something like Hello Bitcoin, and you should dial up the ambition of it. Yeah. And I also had a conversation with Michael Saylor where he helped, you know, inspire me as well. And the way that he framed it to me is like, you know, you really should be thinking about going after and like onboarding the next billion Bitcoin users, and like what would you tell a billion people, and how few words would you need to tell a billion people, like, you know, convince them to get into Bitcoin? Like, and I think that's like an interesting way of thinking about the problem. And he also inspired me to like go and do video, because I knew that if I wanted to get to scale, this is going to require video that can be put out there, consumed asynchronously and shared. And it's just obvious that this needs video to scale.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been reticent to, like, I'd known that, but been reticent to do it because I don't know what I'm doing with video. I'd never produced video. I was like, it's going to be hard to produce videos of the quality that I would like, to be associated with the brand. I don't want to put garbage out there.
Yeah.
And, but he was just like, just do it. Just figure out how to do it. Don't even, don't have a quality bar that's super high. Like, just set a reason, like, especially in COVID days, I feel like our expectations for, like video have come down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but then I knew that I would need some help. And so in the fall, I spent a bunch of time going and talking to other Bitcoiners who were interested in education and maybe had some time at the margin to go and help me. And so I found Connor in London and Carolee in New York, who are Bitcoiners.
Are they already doing similar kinds of things or parts of it, or?
Connor was, he's part of the Bitcoin design community that Steve's organization has helped, put in motion. So Connor's thinking about Bitcoin and design. But had an interest in education, and Carolee's at Chaincode Labs, and she's a non-Bitcoiner that just got dropped into Chaincode, so she's been kind of like learning Bitcoin, and her perspective is coming at learning Bitcoin from really a layperson's perspective, and so she's pretty well steeped in the paucity of materials that exist, and she comes from the acting world, and so she has some skills and putting together videos and stuff, and she has like an eye for that. And so together we're this little ragtag team. We've assembled to go and try and do this and produce these videos. And we did spin our wheels quite a bit actually with that first video. I rewrote the script 10 times from scratch. It was hard to find the voice. And then as we were editing it, it also took a long time to find the right look and feel. And we all did the recording separately. And then we tried to also do it all together and cutting to ourselves. None of it worked. And finally we landed on Connor. It was like, okay, you take the baton, you do it. You're the best among us. And I think actually, he did a great job with the first video. He has a knack for it. And so anyhow, it's all this to say that, yes, I'm spending the cycles that I do have on Hello Bitcoin. And trying to find ways to further scale up the organization, multiply our effort, because we're still just 3 people and there's lots needed, not just on the content development side, but the other side of the project is community building, and it's not something that I've done a lot of. I don't really know how to build big communities and nurture them and do all the growth hacking things to scale up those communities huge, and also scale up the amount of visibility around the content. It's not my natural wheelhouse. And so, I need to find the right type of person to go and just do that, for me or with me. I want to keep the organization volunteer, which is a little bit challenging because I need to find someone who's a Bitcoiner, who knows the community and growth hacking stuff, who has interest in education and the time to be able to contribute to this in the financial means to not be paid by me. So it's a pretty unique individual that I need to find, and I've been able to find those people in Carolee and Connor, and so I need to go try to find someone else to just help us pay attention to and curate the community. So that's probably my biggest need right now. And then longer term, I want to find someone to lead our internationalization efforts, because we're developing these first videos in English because we're English speakers. It's what we know. But the real opportunity for educating people about Bitcoin is going to be in India and South America and Middle East and Africa. And so I need this content localized in the appropriate way. And that's probably not just translating with subtitles under Connor, but it's rather finding a native speaker, tuning the content and message, at the margin to resonate, with each market. And that's going to be a big effort. That's kind of a full-time job for someone on our leadership team to be thinking about and to put into motion.
Right. So, do you know how Vijay's piece was that just sort of organically picked up, or is there any learnings from how that worked?
I should talk to him more about it, because he's a friend of mine, and I'm sure he would tell me. But my impression is that it was a lot of people just putting up their hand and being like, I can translate this, and he gave that effort a little bit of structure on GitHub and stuff, and that just happened. And I'd like to talk to him especially about quality control. But I actually think the effort of translating written material is probably easier than the effort of going and producing de novo localized material, not entirely de novo, because there's something to work with. There's the English originals, but that effort is going to look substantively different.
Also, if you've got a lot of like the visuals and the layouts and the, yeah, I think a lot of that stuff to somebody who's maybe uninitiated may feel heavy or hard to do. But if you can have somebody show up who's a credible kind of
Hmm.
speaker, native, fluent in the language, sounds
Hmm.
great and looks
Hmm.
great on video,
Hmm.
and if you can
Hmm.
kind of layer them into the template that you already created to some
Yeah.
extent, you
Yes.
know,
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
yeah.
I agree.
Do you guys use do you use like OBS or any of those types of tools?
To put the videos together?
Yeah, or is it all like Adobe Premiere? Or...
I honestly have no idea. Carolee
Oh,
does 100% of it. I
oh,
said I send her like scripts and like I work outside of
oh,
what she does. All I get is she sends me links to Vimeos and then I comment on them.
oh,
I think she uses like Corel Suite of all things.
wow, very Canadian.
I'm like
Wasn't
I
Carell
actually like I whatever works for her. She has her tooling.
right?
I don't get my mitts in
Wasn't
there.
Carell a famous Canadian software
Ottawa,
company?
yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
right. Also,
Ottawa-based company. Yes, I remember they had
Word Perfect.
like a big gold office tower in Ottawa.
Was that right? We used to use
Yeah.
Word Perfect. That wasn't that a
Yes, it was.
Carell tool? Yeah, that's a.
I think actually, I think they bought it. I think it didn't. I remember Corel Draw, like their famous
Oh,
tool was
Corel
Corel
Draw.
Draw, and it had
Yeah,
like a big hot air balloon as their logo. That was their big
right.
smash success.
Oh, you're right. It says now owned by WordPerfect, word processing application now owned by Corel. But yeah, it sounds like it was not maybe originally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Corel Draw was probably their
Mm-hmm.
big hit,
Mm-hmm.
which was kind of the Adobe, almost like an Illustrator of the
It
day,
was like
or
the Figma. It was like the Figma of
Figma.
1992 or whatever.
Right. Wow.
David, I have about 5 or 10 minutes, but why don't you tell me about this tooling that you developed and how Highlighter is morphing into this?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think you've maybe followed at a distance a little bit of what we've been up to over the years. And the core idea of Highlighter has always been like to help create a new type of atomic unit for information,
Mm-hmm.
which is tied to like people's knowledge, like things that people know and things that people can curate from longer form and annotate. And we originally did this with like an OCR app from books,
Mm-hmm.
and that was like interesting and worked well, but didn't feel like we could assemble people in the right way to help make this work.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that we found along the path was we had some friends who were running these like book clubs via Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
and we were like, oh, that actually seems like right up our alley. So we started hosting our own kinds of book clubs over Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
And what we wanted to do was create like a video asset as part of the book club. So we'd have like some kind of famous author come in, and then we would invite all the audience who might be interested in that. We'd host it on a Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
and we'd stream the Zoom out to YouTube. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're streaming live to YouTube.
Yep.
And then we wanted to take that asset and kind of post-produce it to make it like a lot better of a representation of what we did.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the things, if you host a normal Zoom, you get like 5 rows and five columns and 4 rows, and like your featured guest is in like row 3, column 4. So we did things like in this, we actually can do a lot of stage composition, so that this video stream that we're seeing, like if we had a third person here, we could make like you featured while me and the third person kind of sit on the side a little bit, and there's all kinds of different templates and ways
And
to
you
lay
can
it
do
out
that in post-production.
live.
Oh, you do it live. I see. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Actually, do you mind if I'll invite one of my colleagues in, and I can show you how that works.
Yeah.
So Mishti is my friend who we do our lunch break every day. I don't know if you saw that link I sent you from our lunch break yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
But Mishti and I basically like hang out and read Twitter every day, and we share links in the chat, and then we sometimes invite people on and do things. So yesterday we did. Let me just tell her to drop by. Yeah, so we had been doing that, and we found that like creating the kind of video asset we wanted, we hired videographers, and we're trying to like take the raw footage from the YouTube live stream. Oh, here's Misty. So Misty just showed up. You can see her in the front row there.
Yes.
So I'm going to invite her up from the front row. She has to go through her kind of camera permissions and audio permissions.
Mm-hmm.
Once she does that, we'll see her in the front row with her video on, and then we can actually she's not in the YouTube live stream right now. We're actually streaming out to YouTube live, but didn't really publish it to anybody. It's just kind of, it's just a small channel.
Mm-hmm.
But what we found is that we had to take like raw footage from YouTube, raw footage from the Zoom recording, hire a videographer, try to compose the thing to feature the guest, and cut out the bad parts and put in indexes, and create the content the way we wanted to. And it was just really, it was a mess. It took us forever, etc. And then we also wanted to make, we wanted these like atomic units of information. So we wanted to make these clips, these highlights.
Yeah.
So here's Mishti. So we're just bringing Mishti up from the front row. Mishti, this is Matt.
Hey. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
So Matt is working on, I think I shared a link, but Matt is working on Hello Bitcoin, which is kind of a Bitcoin educational kind of foundational get from, Bitcoin 101 for the whole world.
Yes, exactly. Nice way to put it. I should steal that title.
Please.
For the whole world, that's cool, because I feel like there's probably a lot of content that isn't out there for the rest of the world, especially.
Yeah, no, I was just telling David about, we're starting with English because I only speak English, but a big part of this project and getting it to the scale that I'd like is going to be to properly localize the content. But even in terms of our messaging and content, my next video is about Bitcoin as a tool for human freedom, talking about all of the use cases that actually I think resonate more with people that live outside of the West, that a lot of Westerners are maybe not talking about. Like, so many people in the West hear about Bitcoin and think about number go up and think of it as just like a thing to speculate on, and don't really have much sympathy for the use cases of remittances, crushing inflation, refugees needing to leave their country with their savings, like all these things that are millions and millions, if not billions of people need to contend with. And so I want to put those messages front and center, even in front of Western people, and be like, it's things that you should care about. And Bitcoin, solves these important problems as a counterpoint to the negative narratives, that are emerging about Bitcoin, environmental cost, blah, blah, blah. I think,
right.
Those narratives never start with like, oh, here are the wonderful benefits that Bitcoin provides, and yes, there are these costs, like that's left out. And so I want to produce some content that widens people's view.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is it's kind of all done in the ethos of Bitcoin, which is kind of voluntary, open source, it's not a kind of a commercial interest. So a lot of times I think when things are done, whether it's as part of like a fund structure or it sort of has some economic model underlying it, it ends up becoming more of a sales pitch for Bitcoin, which, ultimately kind of feels funny. It doesn't sell it the right way when it needs to sell it for commercial reasons. And so what's great about what Matt is doing is it's like purely open source, educational, get this message out to 1 billion people and help people understand Bitcoin without trying to sell, we're not trying to profit from it, not trying to transact.
Yeah, no, I think there's interestingly like some power in the rejection of a business model, and even the rejection of any kind of corporate structure. Like I from my own perspective, like I don't want money to just complicate the thing. Because once there's money, there's a bank account, there's like some legal structure that needs to surround it. And without that, I feel like it's actually quite resilient, in the same ethos of Bitcoin's resilience and decentralization. There's nothing to shut down. You're going to shut down the project. How are you going to shut down the project? Or like, you want me to testify? I don't represent the project. I'm just like, I just happen to write some content, like
maintainer.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I've been seeing tweets about how like people are finally getting kind of the potential of crypto because it's finally sort of getting connected to more things in their actual everyday life and like their needs, like with NFTs and stuff. Like that's kind of taps into a very human need that people have been, tapping into with various things in gaming and online art and stuff anyway. Or we spoke to Camila Russo, who wrote one of the Ethereum books recently. I forget what it's called, Infinite Machine, I think. But she was saying that she worked in Venezuela for a while, and that's when it was so obvious to her and like everyone around her how this was such an important thing for the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then coming here, it is a big disconnect because we don't face anything like that every day. So it's kind of just like the stereotype is you have these crypto bros and whatever. Not the greatest, like most democratic image.
So I just want to be sensitive to time because I know that Matt had to wrap up in a few minutes, but I would just walk him through a little bit of what kind of what we're doing here in case it's a tool that he would find useful. So if you have a few minutes still, I can share a few bits of it.
Let's try to wrap it in 3 or 4 minutes if possible.
Yep. So yeah, as you can see, we can just like share a link around the web and anybody who wants can join. We actually cared a lot about composing the stream so that we could stream it. We record everything. We live stream it out to YouTube often. We also have videos on our site. We actually transcript all the sessions, and from the transcript, you can select the highlights.
Wow.
And we create little highlight videos.
Wow.
And so those highlight videos then get bundled and kind of are playable in sort of almost think of it like a stories-like interface where you can just like see the best of. You don't have to watch the whole 1 hour video. You can actually just see the best, 3 minutes.
Are those highlights automatically composed or they're manually composed? So
today in production we don't have that piece of the tool, so that part is in pre-production right now. Mishti manually creates them. In the future, we actually will get this out of our test environment and into production, so that it's still manual creation, but the manual creation can happen either by the host or anybody in the audience even. So if somebody in the audience, has a great moment, they can create a highlight, they can share it out. Every highlight lives at its own unique URL and can be shared around anywhere.
Wow.
And then all of the chat is moderated. So if you share the link out on the web, and you won't get people trolling you, you actually just like welcome people in to the chat, or people that you trust can welcome people in. So it keeps like we like I said, we started all this on Zoom and it was kind of messy.
I did a public Zoom for Hello Bitcoin 2 weeks ago. I didn't.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
No, how'd it go?
And our Twitter account like tweeted it out publicly, and I knew that bad things might happen, but I was just like, let's just see, let's experiment.
Yeah.
And sure enough, we only had 14 people, but in the 14 people, we had one guy turn his camera on, and there was like a hairy ass on screen that had to be like quickly moderated away.
Oh yeah.
And then there was another person who took the mic who, ostensibly was going to ask a question, but she just screeched. It was just screeching. Oh, no. And then there was another person that took the mic that started with a racist comment. And shut it down. And so this is a Zoom of 14 people, 3 of which are like horrible experiences. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So those are the same kinds of experiences we had sharing links out publicly from Zooms. And so we build all of this so that the video stream is curated, the chat is curated, like the whole thing is your taste and your show.
Yeah, cool.
So that's kind of one of the main drivers. And the video asset, the highlights, etc. So it's just something that we've been doing. The other thing I was going to mention is I know that you had talked about the library use case, like you want to take the Hello Bitcoin presentation, walk around and show it to people at libraries and talk about it there. And that use case has always been in the back of my mind. So we're actually building stuff specifically to support like screen sharing within this context too. You'll be able to, like, if you wanted to, give a Hello Bitcoin presentation for the world, live on the internet, live as a video, have it participatory. That's, we're a few weeks away from that being kind of in the production product, but that stuff will be ready too. So
that's very cool. That's very powerful. Wow.
Yeah. So that's what we've been up to.
Yeah.
I thought I'd just at least share it with you. I know you're getting into video production and thought if this stuff's interesting, we'd love to, we can help support. If you ever want to try doing one, we can run your ops and help. It's a little, it's harder than writing a tweet to manage the cameras and stuff, but it's not too bad.
Right.
And we can volunteer to help if you want to, if you want to operate any of it. Just let us know if and when and whatever you want to do with it.
Okay, that's really awesome. How far are you away from being able to kind of like have some piece of content shown on screen with the audience watching?
Meaning like a screen sharing? It's probably at least, I'd guess, like at least 2 weeks out. yeah, we're kind of in the early stages of some of the prototyping around it. We have all the infrastructure built to support it, but the actual UX to like put it on and who goes where and who's still on stage, and there's just a lot of details to sort there. But yeah, it's probably at least a couple weeks away. But certainly within the month will be.
Yeah, because I think actually when something like that is ready, I think that, and I need some time to get to our video number 3 is going to be like how Bitcoin works. And I'm very keen to do that video. Like our first 2 videos are very much like the value of Bitcoin, very inspirational things. But then video 3 gets into the nuts and bolts of it. But in order to tell that story, I'm going to need some artifacts, like some diagrams and stuff that I want to be able to speak to. And so it could be cool maybe to give a public lecture on how Bitcoin works, for beginners with some very kind of like basic graphics like that presented in slide format. I think that could be really interesting.
Yeah, and you can do it. If you don't want to do it on the channel because it doesn't fit with the flavor of the channel, that's fine too. You can stream it out here. You can just post them to Twitter. Like there's a lot of different ways to deal with the content. So
that's cool.
If you want to do more casual stuff. The other thing is for our lunch break, we just get on casually and we talk, and then when something cool happens, we make a highlight of it. But like it doesn't have to be that the whole thing is like super produced in a sense. So just lower your expectation for what it needs to be. It can just be like hanging out on a Zoom.
That's really cool, and I mean that kind of like mirrors real life as well. Like we just like hang out, and then if something naturally happens that's amazing, it's like, oh, we have a story to tell, but now you have a way of like capturing that story to tell. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
By the way, before I go, and I do have to go, but I'll just quickly relate to you that it's interesting, to see this product spring up and play with ideas, and separately Clubhouse, and because I had a short stint in my career after leaving Google where I was head of product at Airtime. And, Airtime was Sean Parker's thing, where he was thinking about like social video, and his big idea was to try to gather people around a stage where the stage was a piece of content, right? So the idea was to have a shared experience around watching a YouTube video together, for instance, or maybe playing a game together. We're all it's to recreate the experience of being in a room together, doing something together. That's what he was trying to create with Airtime, and the original cut at it kind of failed, and then they cleared the decks, and that's when I joined, and they were starting with like a mobile first approach, and so our constraint was like a mobile screen. How would you try to create this shared experience of like having a stage with an object on it and people with cameras that could also manipulate that object on stage? So imagine anyone able to like scrub the video, or anyone able to like control the game or draw, or we were playing with these ideas, and this is fucking, I don't know how many years ago, like 8 years ago or something. And it's just like, and I never felt like we got it right, and it's one of these things where like there's so many different permutations, and there was, it just, it was too busy, it was too complicated, and and now here we are, like now, and like with Clubhouse is doing like the hard limitation of no video and audio only simplifies a lot of things. And in this idea of just being in a space together, having a conversation, also like without a lot of complication around like complicated controls is also very interesting. Anyway, it just it's fun to participate in this, because like I had been thinking about this from a product perspective a long time ago, and then shelved those ideas, and now I'm seeing a lot of those things come to life in the ways that they should, and like I'm not, we didn't have it right, and it's now fun to see people starting to get it right.
Right. Yeah.
That's
good. Well, I hope we can finally kind of achieve some of these. I think we shared collective desire on the internet for these kinds of things to exist.
There is definitely a shared desire, so it will happen. It's just a question of someone happening upon the right formula.
Yeah. Cool.
All right.
Thanks for sharing.
I have to make dinner now. No, I'm under the gun.
All right. Well, thanks for spending the time and hanging out.
It was fun. Thanks for inviting me. Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. See ya.